What is your scary paranormal restaurant experience? Whether you work there or not, what's your story? So this happened Tuesday, March 3, 2020, and I don't think I'll forget it anytime soon. Now for some background, I work at a small pizzeria that was once owned by my mom. It was recently sold to the new owners who I am currently working for as a dishwasher. Now Tuesday had not been the only time that us coworkers have seen things happen. When I was a child, I would play in the basement while my mom worked. There was always this unsettling feeling down there, and in the corner of my eye, I would always see this tall smoky shadow. March 3rd was different because not only was it the first time something strange happened in a while, but so much had happened on the same day. Work started like usual, and I was up front training for being a waitress. I am a dishwasher. There were 4 of us working and we were all up by counter. To my left was the kitchen and past that was the dish room. One of my coworkers was in the kitchen coming to the counter when we heard something from the kitchen. We watched as 3 containers fell from a stack on one of our shelves. Now I would be like, oh, obviously it was a simple mistake and something shifted on the shelf, but I really can't. These containers were made for knots and wings, and when they stacked into one another, so if any were to fall, all of them would. Also, the shelf it fell off of had a thin piece of metal made to keep dishes from falling. Basically we waved it off and all agreed it was the ghost, which we sometimes joked about after some other strange experiences, stuff falling and random noises. After dinner rush, me and one of my coworkers were closing for the night. There was only the 2 of us there at the time. I was leaving the dish room to talk to him in the dining room. Between the dish room and kitchen is a doorway into the dining room. When I walked into the dining room, I heard what sounded like 2 distinct claps from behind me. I looked at my coworker and told him that there was no one back there whatsoever. When I went back there, I found that I was correct. At this point, me and my coworker start talking about ghosts and ghost stories. We both believe in ghosts, and I had no doubt in my mind that we had one here. Anyway, we are about to leave, but I had to grab garbage bags from the basement. I went down there and said to myself out loud, "Yay, okay, yay, this is for sure a ghost," in a mocking tone. I turned to go down a small walkway between some soda and freezers, and I see a black shadow like from when I was a kid. It came at me quickly and I flinched before it disappeared in front of me. I was shocked and I was terrified. I grabbed the bags and ran upstairs. My coworker saw me and asked what had happened. He told me later that I had looked really shaken up. I told him we had to leave ASAP. We finished up and left. I told him what happened and I told a couple other coworkers. They believed that what had happened was definitely a ghost, even though I told them that it must have all been in my head. For about a year, I worked at a popular sandwich place in a small town in the Midwest. It is set off a decently busy street. The sandwich shop used to be a family-owned steakhouse from at least sometime in the 80s. It was set up like a regular fast food restaurant, well lighted and reasonably clean. Not spooky in the least. I worked with a friend that was a manager who had started a couple of years before me. He claimed occasionally things would fly off shelves. He heard a disembodied voice call out, "Hello Chris," early one morning. His name isn't Chris and he was alone. He would also hear occasional thumps, like someone hitting a wall. The first thing that happened to me was as a customer. I was at the counter ordering my food when I heard the front door open and close. Except, it sounded like a wooden door instead of the heavy metal glass door that was there. Apparently the other 2 customers in the restaurant heard the same thing, as they also turned their attention to the front door. The other thing that happened to me was I heard what sounded like a couple of women talking. Sort of like if you were in the front of a restaurant and you were hearing a couple of women sitting in the back talking. It was just quiet and muffled enough I couldn't make out what they were saying. It was 3:30 p.m. and I was the only person in the restaurant. My theory was that most everything that happened was residual, except for maybe the stuff flying off the shelves. This one happened approximately 17 years ago in small town on the Iowa-Illinois, USA, border. My then boyfriend and I decided to go on a quick weekend getaway there since it was driving distance from us. He booked the hotel and the events for the trip, and I was just excited to go somewhere new. The hotel was quaint and up on a large hill on the outskirts of town. My BF had told me to bring a nice outfit because we were going out for a nice dinner. At the time, I was under the opinion that my BF was going to propose to me on this trip, so when I heard about a nice dinner, I was over the moon getting ready, thinking this was it. Distracted by that thought, I got ready and we got in the car and just a few side roads, and we were pulling up. The second we turned down the road, there was a barn on the right and a large house structure on the left. I got the most uneasy feeling in my gut the second I laid eyes on this property. I tried to refocus my attention on the potential proposal, but by the time we parked, I was getting more and more of a feeling of dread and despair. My BF gets out of the car and comes around to let me out. I step out and feel like ducking back into the car and asking to leave. It felt to me that there were hundreds of eyes all looking at me from the barn, and I was petrified. My BF was looking at my facial expression and asked me what was wrong. Not wanting to ruin our evening with talks of my feelings of unease, I assured him nothing was wrong. We walked into the restaurant and it was obvious this was never set up to be a restaurant, but some type of household. They came to get us for our table, and we ascended the stairs into a main dining area. It was much louder than I had expected, and it had stone walls and little coves, and the second I hit the air up there, I was straight up panicked. I felt sick to my stomach and couldn't get to my seat fast enough to hurry through the night. I was unknowingly rude to the lady seating us by ignoring her question regarding water because I felt like someone across the room was staring at me. My BF looked mad at me, and she had to ask me again because I was scanning the room. I apologized for my rude behavior and she said, "It's okay, it happens here often." Then walked away. My BF was scowling at me now and asked again what was going on with me. Suddenly, I felt like someone yelled my name across the room, and I snapped my head to that area. I swear I saw a man in the opposite corner with half of his face burned off just staring daggers at me. It scared the heck out of me, and I jumped back in my chair at the disturbing image, and my boyfriend jumped out of his seat, looking across the room, thinking someone had done something to startle me. He asked again what was going on and getting angry with me, so I finally decided to tell him that I saw a dead, burned man in the corner, and the entire place had a horrible, sick feeling like I had never experienced before. He started laughing, but I didn't find it funny and got upset asking why he thought that was funny. He then tells me that he read this place was haunted and didn't want to tell me because he wanted to test my ability to sense this stuff, since I had told him about my ability to sense spirits' energy. I was livid with him, but the waiter came up just then. The waiter asked if we had ever been there before and we said no. Then he tells us the history of the place. It was a poor farm back in the 1800s where people could go to work for a place to stay and food. Eventually it turned into a mental asylum, and the very room we were in had people shackled to walls where he showed us the mounts and hooks where the shackles were. He then pointed where the burned entity I saw and said that area was built again after a fire that ended many of the most criminally insane and severely mentally disabled that were there at the time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but it was making sense now. I didn't even notice that I had stopped caring about a proposal and just wanted to get out of there. So we ordered, waited in silence and finished eating. I barely ate one thing on my plate and paid up. I was feeling better as we were headed back down the stairs to the entrance, happy to be getting out of there. My BF was ahead of me, stopped to push through the doors when I felt an icy cold breath on my neck, followed by me sliding across the tile. Even though I was not currently in motion, my heels were sliding forward on the tile. Someone was pushing me from behind and I was being shoved towards the door in little bursts. Shocked, I looked behind me, somehow thinking there was an impatient person back there, but there was no one. One more huge shove, from apparently nothing at all, almost had me sprawling across the floor, so I caught myself from falling, and I screamed and pushed past my boyfriend to run to the car. As soon as I made it out the door, I hit this wall of terror that's hard to explain. It was the most terrifying moment I've ever experienced in the paranormal realm. All of my breath left my body, it was as if all the air was sucked out of my lungs by something, and I couldn't scream or move for a few terrifying moments and felt what most people describe as pure evil. Normally, I don't distinguish between good and evil because I don't believe in either. My BF rounded in front of me after trying to catch up to his crazy GF that had shoved past him out the door. He said I wouldn't tear my eyes from the barn, and my face was completely white with a horrified look on my face. Suddenly, whatever it was that took hold, let go and I ran, in high heels, through the parking lot and threw myself into the car. Once inside the car, I could catch my breath again and began to sob. I had never felt so scared of anything in my life. When my BF finally caught up and got into the car, he was frantically asking what was wrong and looking out the window, thinking something was chasing me because of my frantic sprint. I begged him to just leave. After that, my BF actually felt really bad that he took me there knowing what he did, thinking he would test me. A few years later, I found an article about how the restaurant couldn't keep staff because it was so haunted. They said that everyone that worked there had witnessed something at some point. They said glasses would break just sitting in the bins, dishes would fly across the room, and that they reported being pushed and shoved. I told very few people because it's hard to explain that night, but it's burned into my memories forever. I looked again now, and it said they moved the restaurant for a better location, and in 2009, it was torn down. Honestly, I'm glad because it was not a place for the living.